and only Sandria Faye. I know it's Sandria Smith, so I'm gonna call her name.
It's all my name.
All your names, okay. But her pen name is Sandria Faye, so we're gonna play with that. So real quick, I want to invite you to talk to this audience about, and we'll get into your book and some thoughts, but I want you to talk about your journey to this place. See, I met her on an airplane almost 20 years ago, probably.
2006, I think.
Maybe 2006. We were on a Southwest flight, the very last row. Didn't know each other, and we started talking, and this sister said to me, she said, I want to be an author. And started to express her vision for what that would look like. And fast forward, here we are. So. Oh, you're literary?
The literary person.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, like Dr. Pastor Butler has had a lot of changes since I first met him. He's always been busy though. And also been a person in the community, which I appreciate very much, and have tried to follow in his footpath in that since I lived in Dallas. But becoming an author, when I moved to Dallas, when I met him, I was on my way to a conference, a writing conference. It was in 2006, and I had come here to work with the Walmart Corporation. And I thought at the time that I would just write this book, finish this book in 1 year, and then I would be gone, I would leave Dallas. I'm still here.
We're the beneficiaries of you being here.
Yeah, I worked 24/7 at Walmart, so there wasn't any time to write. But what Pastor Butler forgot to say is when we also met, maybe not that time, but soon after, I talked to him about a literary festival because there wasn't one here. And I would bring in, Walmart became a title sponsor for the Tulasoma Book Festival. But every festival always kind of fall by the wayside, and we have to pick it up and bring it back to life again. So now we're here at SMU, and this year celebrating the 50th anniversary of the
So I know in some of your articles and what's been written about you, what led to you to the calling of literary work as your pathway. So talk about, is it your Aunt Esther or?
Oh, my great-grandmother.
No, it was your aunt who used to follow around.
Oh, when I was little, yeah.
Yes.
So I like how you follow your big sister around. Well, I didn't have one, so it was my aunt. And I would follow her around. When she was doing her homework, I would sit with her and do, try to take the book. I was about 3 years old then. And so she and her friends actually taught me how to read. Like then, I don't think they knew that 3-year-olds shouldn't be reading. And they didn't teach me like C. Jane Ron. She was probably about 10 years older than me. So I was learning from her books how to read. So I always started.
What was the first book you read?
Oh, I can't remember that.
But the first Bible.
You know that. I wasn't even thinking about that as a book, but when I
can't claim you as a member, you know.
I used to read to my great-grandmother, and she's in the book, and that's her on the picture. Well, I don't think it's showing, but she and I are on the picture together. So she was also the great storyteller, and she would mix the Bible, what was true, present time, and myths about Black people could fly and do all of this. And she would mix that together and tell us stories. And so I think that's where I got my storytelling from. But every Saturday around 6 o'clock, that was the time that I would read the Bible to her. And you could imagine how I was pronouncing those words. And our preacher wasn't any better.
Amen. So what inspired you to write the memoir speech?
You know, and, oh, that's Brandon. You know, Pastor Butler, I'm not used to saying pastor, but anyway.
You call me Richie.
Okay, you know, the generation before me is very private. Very, very, very private. And I had heard these rumors that my mother was a civil rights activist. And she had been married to a gentleman who had come to Arkansas as a student nonviolent coordinating committee, SNCC, organizer. But when I would ask her about it, or ask anybody about it, they would just kind of blow me off, you know, like, oh, that was then. We don't remember that stuff. And so I came to know that she was really embarrassed about it. Because people during that time, even with Dr. Martin Luther King, he was a rebel rouser. It's, the civil rights movement split families, and it split her family. And so they actually didn't give her the respect she deserved for taking a chance to lead the civil rights movement in my hometown. And that was the thing, just being nosy, I'm like really nosy, and I think that's what makes a great writer. But I just wanted to find out, and after I sort of wrote a couple of pages about it, I just started doing the research, the research was very difficult, because for small towns, and the hall where they used to hold the center, it had burned down with all the records. So a lot of the things I had to imagine about what was going on in the overall world. So I figured it had to be going on here in Arkansas. And then some of it, that's why I write fiction. I just use my imagination altogether. And the pictures you see, except for the one with me and my great-grandmother, was actually taken in the Arkansas Delta during the 1960s. I had written about it before I ever got these pictures, but it matched how I had described the city.
So how long from the time you started sort of pondering this sort of rising in your spirit to completion, how many years did that take?
A good chunk of my life. Yeah, I know it's hard for any writer to answer, because you have those long breaks, like when I went to work for Walmart, or like when I finished my MFA program, my master's program in Arizona. I put the writing away and left, because I tell you why it took so long. So I graduated in 2001, and I had a draft of this book, and it actually was on the bookshelves in 2015. That's a good way to answer that. But I would say the one thing, for Black women born, I actually grew up in a town, in this town that you see. I grew up there, so like that's a long ways from, I'm a long ways from home, but home is not ever that far away from me. Gould, G-O-U-L-D, 32 miles south of Pine Bluff. Okay. But anyway, for me, and women like me, it took longer too, because I had to give myself permission to be a writer. Because what I said earlier, what one of the characters in the book said, only famous people or people with a lot of talent could be writers. And so I tried to look around also to see who's in Arkansas, what woman in Arkansas had done this and been successful at it. And the only person that I came up with, and I dedicate the book to her and my great-grandmother, is Dr. Maya Angelou. And so I got her book, and I kept it with me for the whole time I was in the master's program, and until I finished the draft. And she didn't even live in Arkansas but a few years. So that's how unusual it is for someone to be where I'm from and then to publish a book like Mourner's Bench.
And part of the reason I ask about the length and the time, because I think I want you to dig in a little deeper, because I think this is the world in which we live today. You know, we've heard the term microwave society, but and now with technology, I mean, everything's at our fingertips, and you know, it's instant. And clearly, this was a birthing process.
Yeah,
And it wasn't 9 months; it was years. And to help explain to this audience, especially those who may be carrying around a dream or an idea or vision, and you know, you need to stay faithful to it.
So, you don't have to take as long as I did. I just want to say that. And the other thing too, I knew that if I wanted to be taken seriously as a writer, when I started the process, when I applied to Arizona State, I did not know what literary fiction was. I was an accountant. I just wanted to write like Danielle Steele and write romances, and I'm gonna get around to that. But once I started, and they accepted me into that program, like not knowing anything. So don't ever let that stop you. But also, I was accepted, they only accepted 6 people. They probably had 500 applications. So sometimes it's meant for you to be where you are.
Yes, yes.
You understand that? And so
Just the journey of.
oh yeah, and so for me, I believe that if I wanted to be taken seriously, I needed all the education that they offered. So the first thing I received a Master of Fine Arts in Literature and Creative Writing from State University, which is a 3-year program, and that's a terminal degree, but it should be enough for you to be a professor at the university and all of that. But then I moved to Dallas, and I received the MA from Master of Arts from University of Texas at Dallas, and I thought, like, well, you know, I gotta go for everything if they're gonna accept me. You know, I'm from this town here. So I went on and received a PhD from the University of North Texas. And what I'd like to tell young people, or the people that I come into, because even at both universities, UTD and UNT, I published a book while I was in those programs. And the administration kept asking me, why didn't I quit? I already did what I was supposed to do. Like, that's why you come to university, to be able to write a book that you can publish after you leave. I told you I did things early. But anyway, I couldn't understand why they kept asking me, why leave? Why telling me to leave? I'm like, and so I internalized it, well, they don't think I can finish this program. So now I dug in. I had to dig in then, because don't tell me what I can't do.
Yeah.
But I also told them, which is true, I couldn't go out and talk to young people and tell them that I quit. Like, how am I going to answer that? Whatever question they have, if I told them that, well, I wrote a book and I quit.
Good word, good word. You got your master's, your PhD in I'm sorry, 2 masters. Stand corrected, 2 masters. Speak to the intersectionality of the literary world, and as we talk about Black history, and the role it plays in preserving and maintaining, and then also I want you to also lean into, as you respond to that, also think about it from a social justice perspective, because you're not just a literary person, you really are committed to social justice.
That's a hard question, Richie.
You have a PhD and 2 masters. Talk about the intersectionality
For literature. So.
of Black history, yeah.
Yeah, primarily for African American literature. Even though it's fiction, you will find our history in those books, and you always have. From Zora Neale Hurston, from Richard Wright, all of those people, they write about what is going, like before rap, they were writing about what was going on in our communities. The good thing now is that our history was written by white men. And I had some pushback from that when I was gonna write about the civil rights movement. Many black people will say, I don't wanna know those stories. I don't wanna hear about slavery. Hadn't enough books been written about that. And from my research and what I believe is that they say that because we are not telling our own stories. We're not writing our own stories. There isn't any way that you can read Mourner's Bench and not come away rooting for Sarah, the 8-year-old, which is similar to Kill a Mockingbird, if you've seen that. I was like, I'm gonna write my black scalp. And so someone who finds it, chases, you know, like comes through a lot of adversity in a time when the world was in chaos like it is now. But also the social justice part comes from my parents, not from my great grandmother. I come from a family of women who believes in service, who say that they are gonna leave a place better than they found it. And that's where it comes from. So whatever I'm doing, I'm gonna find, the first thing I'm gonna find when I move to a town is some place to serve. And this place happened to be literature. God, y'all don't wanna read in Dallas. But, cause I see people like
Say that one more time.
you don't wanna read.
In Dallas.
In Dallas. I'm just gonna say that here. I see people like Vicky Meeks, some of you probably know her, and other people, and I've been doing this since I came here, and she'll say, you still pushing that literature? So I'm out in the community doing that, and the reason why for this community is because of the literacy rate. And I believe that, like literature, reading saved my life. I would read under tables. That was one thing my grandmother, I could get out of washing dishes if I was reading. So, but I think that the rate in correctional facilities is about 90% illiterate. And I figure if we could catch them early enough, and if they could read, also trafficking. They come from the same neighborhoods. If we can catch them early enough and they read about something like what's in Mourner's Bench or other authors who are reimagining our history, then maybe they will make a different choice. And if one person can make, if one person can make a different choice, I'll be pushing literature in Dallas for a long time.
I want to say that for just a moment. You said something quite profound, but I feel like you may be pushing a bolder appeal. In part because we now have a society that operates on 180 characters.
Absolutely.
Or less. And everything's about feeds, which are, not, chronicled, because to read a book takes time. And so I just want you to lean into, and maybe you have some thoughts about how to counterbalance that when it comes to our children, because we're competing with a force that is engulfing.
Yeah, you're right, and I probably have some pushback against professors that I see in here, especially the English professors. But
keep it real.
I believe that we have to meet people where they are, whether they're students or whatever. Like, I can't keep preaching to them to read a 300-page novel when all they want to read is 180 characters or 285 characters or whatever it is. I even like TikTok now. I'm just like, I have to love it. And then there's a book talk. I can't wait to get my book on there. But I think you have to meet students where they are and then get them engaged in reading. So whether, like, some of my that some books, some things that I assign to my students are just one-page excerpts from novels or short stories. And then they like that, and you can introduce them to a little bit more. And so it's almost like when I was a child and was introduced to reading, I just think that we have to reintroduce the younger people to reading, because I don't think it's going anywhere. And especially our Black children, I think we have to get them started early to do that. As a matter of fact, with the festival, we're inviting high school students to the festival, April 2nd and 3rd. We're inviting high school students to the festival, and they get to select a book, and we are, as SMU, when I say we, sending them that book so that they have the opportunity to read it, and then come to SMU campus and meet the authors. And so we have to go the extra mile. If we're still just standing there saying, you should have read that and here's an F, then the F should be ours.
Right.
We should, this is just the way I feel. But we have to, I think we have to. Like, I can't, like, say for instance, when we do a lot to introduce students to athletes, but what are we doing to introduce them to the other professions?
I want to quickly pivot to your book, and I think there are two things that stand out: resilience and resistance. And so I want you to speak to that and how resistance and resilience applies today, given what's going on right now. Two masters and a PhD.
Well, goodness. I started wearing suits when Vice President Kamala Harris decided to run for president. Today I don't have on my chucks, but usually I do if I have on a suit. Yeah, I'm not in the divine nine, so I don't want to be disrespectful. But I did, and that was in honor of her. And but I think today we are going to have to resist everything that has been pushed down our throats. And I guess that's a good way. I resist by using Southern African American vernacular English. That's the way I have a PhD, so I can talk like I'm from home. And it's a way that I honor my ancestors as well, that didn't have this opportunity. But we are going to have to be resilient. The first festival that I organized for SMU was online, and the theme was resilience. And that's because we had made it through the pandemic. So with what's going on today, we know that we can make it through. It's just another pandemic. And but we are going to have to resist, and we are going to have to be resilient. And you didn't ask, but we are going to have to build. And whatever that means for you, like I'm an author, I ask questions I don't really know the answer. I'll ask you that same question, Reggie. But I do think that we are going to have to be all of those things. And while turn off the TV, that's what we've been told twice this year. And we're going to have to turn it off. And women, African American women, I'm going to say us, because I know us better. But we are going to have to be quiet and build. And so when this is over, you're going to say, oh, we've already started it. We can't say that we're just going to boycott Target and then just go right back. We got to build something in its place. And I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to turn that over to you.
You're so right. I mean, African Americans represent roughly nearly 5 trillion in economic power and, 7 billion in assets in all of our banks combined that are controlled by African Americans. Right there is a conversation to be had. But this is about you, so your conversation. So in the real estate world, they tell you, a real estate professor will tell you real estate 101 is real estate is local. Real estate is local. And yeah, it's about location, but it's local. You can't be from another part and fly in and think you're gonna take over a community. And so with that in mind, I feel like your book really reaffirms that social justice, this concept of resilience is really local and it's grassroots. And so speak to that and build upon it.
Well, my publisher thought it would just be a regional Arkansas book. And so I agree with you that that's where we have to start with home. Whatever that means to you, it's home. Like now I live here in Dallas. It's much more complicated to maneuver in Dallas. I mean, you would think I've been here all of this since 2006, that I would have the support and that I need to do the things that I want to do with literacy. But maybe it's just because I picked a hard topic. But anyway, I just think you're right. It begins at home. And what you do at home, just like Marshbench, you don't know how it's gonna turn out, right? I didn't know I was writing a book about mothers and daughters that would resonate nationally. I just thought I was telling this little story about a town with less than 1,000 people, with one flashing yellow light on the highway. And after I did the research, this town had done so much but was not recognized. Even the people in the town didn't even know about it. My own mother, they didn't even know what she had done, and my aunts and people who had really fought for